Hey guys, my name is Brandon Barty. Thank you for listening in. This feels so weird. I sound like a wannabe radio DJ here. But I want to thank you for dedicating part of your day to listening to this. I'm here with a mentor and friend of mine, Mr. Paul Reed, who is the president of Farmers Bank. Is that the right title?
That is correct.
And Paul has been a personal influence in my life, and I'll get to that here in just a second, in ways that I haven't necessarily even told him about yet. But one person described Paul as the friendliest banker you'll ever meet. And I think that is absolutely true. And another person, Perry, said that you were too friendly, too nice to be a banker.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Well, I don't know how he meant it, but I told that to him, and he said he took that as a compliment. So, if that kind of gives you a little bit of a insight into his character, we all think of bankers as a little bit like what's your Christmas movie, Raina? It's a Wonderful Life, the Mr. Potter, like that's all we all have in our mind, and Paul might actually be the opposite of that. So a quick little story here. Shortly after moving to Pomeroy, against everybody's advice, we moved to town to open up our studio here. We joined a group called Imagine Pomeroy, and Paul was and continues to be a very big and motivating part of that. But even before I knew, quote unquote, who he was, one thing that I noticed is that there was one person in the group that cared more than anyone else, and it was Paul. And I don't necessarily know that caring more. Let me retract that a little bit. I don't know that he cares the most, but it was evident that he cared more so than anyone else, and he was constantly asking questions and constantly trying. Here I am. What were we? 24 when we moved down here. 25. We were 26 when we moved here. A kid with no business experience, no reason for anybody to believe in. But you gave me the time of day. You asked the right questions, and we actually, got a little bit done. You're not going to talk too much about Imagine Pomeroy because it's still a work in progress, and I think it's going to be going through maybe a little bit of a rebirth in the near future. But that is how I met Paul, and I've always been incredibly impressed. You don't when you hear about the president of a bank, that's not what you think of. And so, thank you, Paul, for coming.
You're welcome. But it was easy with you, Brandon, because I could tell that you and Raina really cared about making this area a better place to live and work, and that's kind of a motto that my wife Laurie and I go through. Of you start out with what you're dealt, the hand you're dealt. Mm-hmm. And you play it the best you can, and we strive to make the world better. This part of God's creation will be a better place to live and work. Mm-hmm. And you all were a part of that.
Yeah. I love it here. And I see the area for its weaknesses, but I also see tremendous strengths here. Living where we do, we wake up every morning and the Ohio River is our front yard. Like that's in addition.
I'm sorry but that's a key point that your listeners can hear is it depends on which lens you decide to put on, mm-hmm. which lens you want to look at the world through. You can read all the negativity, and that if that's the lens that you want to see the world through, that's what you see. If you want to see that it doesn't have to be that way and that you can make a difference to make it better, that's the right lens to wear.
Okay, so we're jumping in real fast here.
Sorry about that.
No, but if you don't mind, you said that one thing that you and Laurie believe is that you play the hand that you're dealt. Okay, can you expound on that a little bit for me?
Well, whenever you take control of a situation, you've got players, mm-hmm. and for example, when I first took over the bank, there were people that were already worked at the bank for years and years and years. Mm-hmm. That was a hand I was dealt.
Yeah.
And they had skills that were very, very valuable. And I used those skills to the best of the ability to make the bank better tomorrow than it is today. Mm-hmm. So that's what you mean when you have to play the hand you're dealt.
Mm-hmm. So like if in a different scenario, say that's somebody that is growing up with every disadvantage that could possibly be to them, how would you apply that same wisdom?
Well, it's kind of interesting. Laurie and I had a family that lived next to us for a lot of years when we first moved to Middleport. Mm-hmm. And we could see the potential in those kids. And we tried to live by example and teach them that once you hit a fork in the road, you can take the high road and dig yourself out, or you can take the low road and kind of stay on the path you are. And there were 3 daughters. Mm-hmm. 2 of the 3 daughters turned out pretty successful.
Yeah.
And one of them just didn't take the right path.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what we mean when you're dealt a hand. You just play it the best you can, and sometimes you play trump and win, and other times you just hold back and you're scared to take that leap and to do something positive.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's take a little bit of a side road real quick. You mentioned the word successful, and that's part of the purpose behind this is to kind of give people that are entering adulthood in our local community a lens into what it means to be successful. So how do you define that word? I think everybody has their own definition, but like how do you define?
Well, a lot of people define success by just the money they've got in their checking account. Mm-hmm. Other people define success with how powerful they can be. Mm-hmm. I define success on how happy I can be.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And focus on the things that are truly valuable in life, things that don't cost money. Just holding hand with my wife and spending time with her. That is precious time, and that's what makes me successful. Caring about other people, listening to their words. Yeah, granted, I'm the CEO of a bank, but the opinions of my employees or the employees of the bank mean so much more than just dictating what needs to happen. So success to me is working with everybody that I come in contact with to advance the bank, to advance Pomeroy, to advance Middleport, Meigs County. Just be better tomorrow than you are today. If that happens, it's success.
From personal experience, I can say 100% you were achieving that goal, at least in our relationship. But I am very good friends with the majority, actually, of your employees. I think it's funny that the reason that my personal account is elsewhere is because all of your employees are my friends, and that weirds me out.
They don't spend time looking at your account, I promise you, so bring it on.
By the way, our business account actually is with Farmers Bank, by the way. But talking to your employees, I will say they have all would say that I've never gotten an impression of, oh, the boss is coming, you know.
Well, and I know that I intimidate some of the employees, and I don't understand why. I think it's more the title than it is the person carrying the title. And employees that I get to interact with, it's very, very, very quickly they realize, that's a pretty nice guy.
Yeah.
Well, at least I try to get that.
We had three Imagine Pomeroy meetings before I actually knew what your title was. And I just remember talking about like, oh wow, this guy's really nice. Like this guy's kind of awesome.
I think you actually came back to the studio and they're just really nice.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of the personality because there are many times that I'll introduce myself and people say what you do, ask what you do, and I work for a bank. Yeah. I don't give title.
Yeah, there are a lot of times for completely selfish reasons that we might be in a sales scenario, especially in a volume scenario, that we won't tell people that we're the owners. But just for that exact same reason, now the owner of a photography company and the CEO of a bank have a different weight. Those two titles have different weights to them, but
I'm trying to lose. No.
Okay, so let's rewind a little bit. And you said that you were talking about the neighbors. Let's say that we are talking to somebody who, again, doesn't have any advantages. What is that first step? Like, what is the first thing that you would recommend to somebody to do to make tomorrow better than today? Like,
that's a loaded question. I would have to say one of the first things to do is look in the mirror and say, I can do it. Increase your self-esteem. The person that is the most successful is no different than you, except they have positive self-esteem. And that's one of the things that took me a while to learn, because I was the guy that sat in the back in college. I sat in the back of the room. When the professor would ask a question, I put my head down because I did not want to be called upon. I had low self-esteem. And I brought that low self-esteem into the bank. And the bank started off with low self-esteem, and banks are growing and becoming much more successful. And I'm thinking, I can't do that. And then I realized, yes, you can. So I developed stronger self-esteem. The bank developed stronger self-esteem. So I always say that the bank takes on the personality of the lender, or the leader, not the lender, the leader.
Mm-hmm.
And if the leader has low self-esteem, the company has low self-esteem. Mm-hmm. And finally, with a lot of encouragement, first of all, I need to tell you, I owe my success to my wife, Laurie. She is they say behind every successful man is a successful woman. That is absolutely the case.
I agree.
I could not be where I am today without her support. And she kind of encouraged me that you're much better than you think you are. Snap out of it. And lo and behold, we started with a branch in Gallipolis, and that went really well. Mm-hmm. And now we're ready to open our seventh location halfway between Huntington and Charleston, West Virginia, area known as Tays Valley. Yeah. And I don't have any doubt that we won't be successful because the company has grown in self-esteem. I grew in self-esteem. So what I would tell people that think they don't have a snowball's chance, you do. It's all with it's the lens that you look at yourself with. Mm-hmm. And if you look at yourself with the lens that, hey, I can do this, I can be successful, that coupled with pay attention in class and get an education. Mm-hmm. Education is the key to success. And Brandon, you and Raina have proven that you can be successful in Meigs County, that you don't have to leave your home area to be successful. It takes education and self-esteem.
And that's one thing that actually let me back up for just a second here. A little bit of a quotable phrase that came out of the last conversation I had with one of our commissioners, Randy, was that the you don't, or life doesn't happen to you, you happen to life.
Right.
And developing that mindset, how that was a big turning point for me. Mm-hmm. Was when I realized that, like, you're fine, you can cough. This isn't this isn't a studio recording. We're sitting at my dining room table in my apartment, by the way. What did you do to build your self-esteem, though? Because, like, that's easy. A lot of people are going to say, like, that's easy enough to say, way different to do.
Well, it started with several things. One was I was asked to become a board member of the Ohio Bankers League, which is a state organization, represent the interests of banks. Mm-hmm. And I observed other people, and I observed what made them successful or what made me think that they were successful. And I remember driving away. I was very quiet, just kind of like those college classes. I just did not want to speak because I didn't want to make a fool of myself. Mm-hmm. And on the way back, I had the realization, those questions that those smart people asked, those were the same questions I had. The big difference was they had the guts to ask them, mm-hmm. and I didn't. And then when you just look at people as people and realize that they're not any smarter than you are, it provides an amount of confidence. And then just gradually, I'm going to ask that question first. I'm driving to a meeting in Columbus. I'm like, these are my questions. And I realized that it would be just like talking to you, Brandon, that if I asked a stupid question, you wouldn't care.
No.
And they didn't care. And the questions weren't really all that stupid. They were just questions I was afraid to ask. And that reminds me, though, that I have a card in my office. It's my favorite quote. And I live by this quote. And I've given this card and I've given this quote to many, many people. And it says, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. If you stay inside your comfort zone, you're lost. You don't advance one step forward because your comfort zone is just that. So I challenge myself, and Laurie challenges me to, I can't think the number of times in my career Laurie said, you can do that. And I'm like, no. And she's pushing. And it's I ended up becoming chairman of the Ohio Bankers. And in that role, I ended up testifying before Congress. And
is there a C-SPAN video somewhere of that?
There is. There is a C-SPAN video of that. And I was way outside my comfort zone. But I could always, everywhere I went, I could always hear Laurie's voice in the back of my head saying, you can do it. You can do it. And it's kind of like, the I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. Yes, yes, you can. And little successes lead to big accomplishments. And that's what built my career over the years.
Does any of this sound familiar, Raina? By the way, a little bit. But Raina and Laurie are here with us. I do not have enough mics for all four of us. Hopefully that'll change in the near future. So that I'm completely blown away by your answers, by the way, and I'm just going to keep on moving on.
You keep going.
You had also mentioned that one of the hallmarks of being successful is education. And the first thing that people are going to think of is college. And
No.
I think, but how do you define education? Like, what do you mean by that?
That's a loaded question. I wish I wish I had the education to answer that properly. No, education is just, and maybe that's too rough of a term.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference. Education is one. Learning is what develops into education. You can become educated day by day by just learning, and you become an educated person without even knowing you become educated.
Absolutely.
I got a kick out of what we used to say is, last week I couldn't even spell graduate. Now I are one. It's just whether or not it's reading or just looking online and Googling information. If you learn one thing today, that's one thing you didn't know yesterday, and that accumulates into wisdom and education, and maybe wisdom might be a better term. Which reminds me, when I was 32 years old when I became president of the bank. And one of the senior board members came to me and he said, "You have the ability to do the job. You just need maturity." I was very offended by that. I thought, I'm mature for a 32-year-old, and I think what he meant is you just need wisdom, and wisdom is something that you build daily. So education, wisdom, learning, it's all the same. Just as I don't mean to kick a horse, but just make today better than yesterday, and then tomorrow will be better than today.
So you became president of the bank at 32. You're 35 now.
And I've been doing it for 20 some years. Thanks, Brandon.
I'm gonna butt in here for a little bit. Education, learning, developing wisdom is a hallmark of both of our lives. I try to read a book every week. And people listen to that and they're like, "Holy cow, that's crazy!" No, it's 30 minutes a day. It's 30 minutes a day. Like, give up one episode of one TV show and you're reading a book every week. And I'm, by the way, am I a fast reader, Anna? I am a very slow reader, and it takes me 30-40 minutes to read enough pages to finish. If I stopped doing that right now, I guarantee you that our business would stop growing.
I believe that.
And it's not just books. It's also online. It's also having conversations like this with people that you look up to. It's a lot of forms of learning. But if you devote your life to, I might get myself in trouble here, but the vast, vast majority of the practical knowledge in my life happened outside of a classroom. I am not saying that college wasn't good, because college was immensely valuable for me. But the knowledge that I use every day, that came from books, that came from blogs, that came from asking questions. And a former, well, not really a former, his name is John Bush now. He was a teacher of ours. So, and actually, this might not be his quote. He's just the one that said it. But he said the day that you stop reading is the day before you stop leading.
Oh, good point.
And at the time, I was 19 when he said it, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, good quote." But it's true. It's absolutely true. So let's move on for just a second. You said that you became the president of the bank at 32. Is this where you always thought that you would end up?
It is.
So like, how was growing up like that? Like, how was
growing up knowing that the bank was in my future?
Yes.
I think I would have been a better student in college if I didn't have this security blanket available to me.
Yeah.
As you know, and many people know, that the bank was started by my great grandfather, and then my grandfather, then my father. So it was kind of in our blood.
Yes.
So to speak. And I knew that I had a leadership role ahead of me in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
So I may not have tried as hard in college as I should have. And that's one of the regrets I have is when it was time to interview for different companies, I didn't even try.
Yeah.
And I think that would have helped build self-esteem. Notice I said live outside your comfort zone. I didn't believe that in college. I was very comfortable knowing I was coming back to the Farmers Bank.
Yeah.
I do admire my dad. He had me start in what they call Siberia. He wanted me to start in the worst possible job.
Started in the mailroom.
Pretty much. And I admire him. He was hands off, and he was if he can't cut it, he's not going to become successful. But I would use that to learn. So yeah, I ended up exactly where I wanted to be.
Yeah. So what is I'm assuming that like even though you are where you thought you would be, is there anything that's different about your day-to-day life? Like what do you spend your day doing? That what takes up most of your time, I guess, is the question.
Every day is different. Planning for the future, leading the bank into the future, finding new opportunities, that takes a great deal of time. But the mountain of regulation that we have to deal with and crossing the T's and dotting the I's, that takes a lot of time. And at the same time, I'm the leader of an organization that has 80-some employees. So human resource and making sure that all the branches are up and running and that the customers are happy and that the shareholders are happy. It's just, there's not one day is not the same as another.
As of January 1, Raina and I have 2 employees, and it freaks us out that we are responsible for their quality of life. And when you just said that, just a chill just came like running down my spine.
We have a great human resource administrator and Erin Christensen, and without her, we wouldn't be able to do all the things we're doing. So I'll give her a shout out.
I love Erin, by the way. Erin is she's a blast to talk to. Yeah, I'm not.
She makes me laugh so hard every time I see her.
She's great. Just point blank, what are you most proud of?
My family.
Tell me about that.
Without a doubt. We have 2 wonderful kids. And a new son-in-law and a grandpuppy. But the kids have brought so much joy to our life. And watching them grow and become young adults and be successful in their own right. It's a proud moment for Laurie and me to sit back and say, as my dad would say, you done good. By far the proudest moment, or the thing we're proudest of the most.
If kind of along that same lines, because you're both your children are young adults. I actually don't know how old Katie is, but Ben's
I'm not allowed to say.
Ben's
she's approaching that age where you don't mention it anymore.
I know Ben is like a little younger than us, right? Like
he's 23.
Yeah, okay, so he's a lot younger than us. Wow. I'm not asking you to necessarily share anything personal, but a lot of the questions that I wanted to ask were like, if you were 17 right now, complete this sentence. So, when we talk about those, if you could just kind of substitute your own kids.
Okay.
And again, I'm not asking anything personal, but first thing, if you had it all over to do, or had it all to do over again, you are 17 years old. What would you, first of all, what would you do, even if you wouldn't change anything? Because people don't know what you did when you were 17. What would you do, and then if you would change something, what would you do differently?
I think the biggest thing I would do, and I've said it again, and you may roll your eyes, but I wish I would have built self-esteem a lot earlier. I wish I would have learned to step outside of my comfort zone a lot earlier in life than I did. I don't know that I would be any more successful, but I got to think that there would be things that this area may have if I could have just gotten involved sooner, instead of saying I'm not worthy.
And that's, I feel like, and I want to pause here because I feel like people are going to hear that and they'll be like, oh, okay, cool. Let me take that note. It is so incredibly true that, like, if first off, you don't believe that you can do something, you're not going to do it.
Right.
And I mean, there have been plenty of times that Raina and I have done things that we didn't necessarily believe we could do, but we tried anyway. But the fact that we tried showed that at least on some level we believed that we were capable of it, and that's huge. The way that you view yourself. So this could be potentially what you call a loaded question, but what's a mistake that you see young adults making today that you wish that you could just jump in and say, hey, don't do this?
I think, well, that's not a loaded question because I see it a lot, and I'm familiar with enough families that the kids, the 17, 18, 19-year-olds, they want to start out with the same lifestyle that their parents have. Mm-hmm. And they don't realize that parents have spent their entire career getting to the point where they are. Mm-hmm. And I see too many kids starting out way behind because they want to buy the things that they see their parents have. And, things will happen over time. Enjoy what you have today. And, I can remember when Laurie and I first bought the house, we didn't have a whole lot of money. We had a lot of time. Mm-hmm. We didn't have money.
How about now?
Oh, to be back then. So we bought a house in Middleport, and we renovated the whole thing on our own. And I go back, we did a whole thing with a handheld power saw, because we didn't think the equipment was that expensive. And after we finished the house, we saw a table saw for $90. We thought, wow, we would have been in a house 4 months sooner.
Raina and I discovered the miter saw about 6 months too late as well.
But you know what? Those are great memories. And if we would have gone way in debt and try to have what our parents have, I love telling the story that my dad pulled up the week after we bought the house. He pulled up in a car that he paid more than we paid for the house. So the point is, go slow, enjoy life. And yeah, I know young kids won't see it today, but some of our happiest memories were back in a time when it was just the two of us, and we didn't have a whole lot, but we had each other. You may not have a lot of blessings, but the blessings you have then are very, very special, and don't lose sight of them. Money doesn't make people happy. Money has a tendency to make people miserable, and the search for money can be a very miserable thing. And I can remember that we used to get paid every 2 weeks, and I remember on payday I paid all the bills, and I had like $20 for 2 weeks, and was happy that I had a can of tomato soup in the cupboard on Wednesday 2 weeks later because I had something to eat. But that makes you stronger. That makes you appreciate what you do have. And I could have gone in debt and gone out to dinner, but you just don't have the ability to do that sometimes.
Absolutely. And I'm not trying to be like, hey, me too. But I remember a time that the first place that we moved to here in town, it was Rick and Kathy Crow's place, and our rent was, are you ready for this? Mm-hmm. $300.
I paid $100.
$300 is our rent. And I remember there was one night that Raina and I were sitting down brainstorming how we were going to come up with that $300 to pay our rent that month. And it was this like panic-stricken conversation that, it was just like, how are we going to do this? Because we were so far away from it at the time. And looking back now, we kind of chuckle at that. And it's not that $300 isn't still a lot of money, because I think it is to everybody. $300 is a good amount of money. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting to look back at that, and I think that those times have made the whatever success that we currently have, they make it that much more valuable, because we know that we didn't that we worked for it. And
I'll interrupt, but I'll tell you a story, and Laurie may kick me under the table when I say this. But one of our memories that we have when we just didn't have money to do much, for a wedding gift, we got a set of coasters. And there were six coasters in a container, and one side had cork on it where you set your glass, and the other side was solid wood. And we would play a game, which ones have the cork facing this way and which way. I mean,
for Saturday night.
That was, we couldn't afford to do, but you know what? That's a memory that we have today. And if we would have taken $20 out of our savings account to go out for dinner, we wouldn't have that memory. Some of our happiest memories were when it was just the two of us struggling to make it to payday. So, again, don't live for tomorrow. Just enjoy today. And well, maybe you need to save for tomorrow, but
So actually, that's a perfect segue, actually, because I want to move on into the. I feel like people would be mad at me if I didn't ask you for at least a little bit of financial advice
All right.
here. You are the CEO of a bank, my favorite bank.
but we have employees that deal with all that.
So
Hey,
speaking,
Sean.
speaking financially specifically, like if you're a young adult right now, first of all, what are some things that you avoid? Like, what are some things that you do not do as a young adult?
Well, I have a couple rules.
Okay.
And I will tell you something that you do. Even when Laurie and I were playing the coaster game because we couldn't afford to do anything else,
Mm-hmm.
we were saving for retirement. And that was drilled into me by my father, and I've never taken out of my retirement. I've always started saving for retirement from my very first paycheck. So it's kind of like pay me first.
Mm-hmm.
And that's money that's set aside. And you know what? We're a few years away from that, and we're talking about things we can do in retirement because we did not ignore the fact that you need to save.
You said pay me first. Have you read Richest Man about Babylon?
No.
Oh, really?
No.
Really? Okay. That's just a direct line from it. So.
Okay, well, and then the other thing that I would encourage people just starting out to do is be very, very careful with credit card. The rule of thumb that I have, that I had then, is if what you purchase with your credit card, if you still own it and have it in your possession when the statement comes, it's okay to make a payment. But if it's already gone, if it's eaten, if it's digested, and you have nothing to show for it, make sure you pay that part off.
Yeah.
I hear so many times of kids using their credit card or getting a credit card with $500 on it, and next thing you know, they go to Taco Bell, they go out to dinner, they live it up, and then the bill comes and they don't have anything to show for it. But if you're in the photography business, if you use a credit card to go out and get new equipment for the business, if you still own it, it's okay to make payments. The interest rates will be very, very high, and farmers making loan to you cheaper. Just put that in there. And Laurie and I try to teach our kids that just don't use credit to buy things that are here today and gone tomorrow.
So what is something that credit is universally good for? I'm not talking about mortgages and car loans. I'm talking about the good old Capital One credit cards. Like, what is a good reason that people should be using it?
It's good for emergencies, and I know a lot of situations where people will use their credit card to go on vacation, and then they use 12 months to get it down to zero balance, only to use it again
on their vacation. Yeah,
it is,
Christmas.
or for Christmas. It is a great thing to have in case of emergency, and if you have the ability to and Laurie and I never get to the point where we can't write a check or pay the whole thing off at the end of the month. It's a big convenience. You don't have to carry cash. We do use our Farmers Bank debit card a lot. But, if you're staying at a hotel, you give them your credit card and they run it through the credit card, you get the bill and you pay it. So it is a nice convenience to have. And it also is a good way to help build credit. If you handle your credit card correctly, it's a step forward to being able to have a good credit score, to become financially independent. And if you handle debt properly, it is a great tool to build financial net worth. It is very difficult to build net worth without debt.
Yes.
And somebody that gets college kids will get those credit card applications in the mail. Use it properly. If you use it properly, you're on your way to building good net worth.
And just one more time, just in plain terms, what does the proper use of a credit card look like? Like for me, if I don't have kids, but what I would recommend based on something that I wish I would have known, would be just get a gas card or something like that and pay it off in full every month just to start building that. Because when it came time for me to realize that I needed credit, I didn't have any.
Right.
I had great parents. My dad especially taught me amazing, set me up for success in a lot of ways, but he hated all things debt. And I think that because of that, in a lot of ways, that my life is better because of that, because I've never been quick to go run to the bank and get a loan and stuff. But at the same time, I never had any credit before I was 25, 26. So when it came time to, maybe I should buy a car that doesn't leak oil all over my client's driveway. I didn't. I mean, my credit score, I told you earlier, was a 540. Can you buy a car with a 540 credit score? No. So I wish that I had at least just gotten like a gas card or something. And would you recommend that?
I would, if you use it properly. That's the key. You can have 20 credit cards. If you use them properly, it's a good thing. And you told me you started out at 540, and you shared with me earlier this evening what your credit score is now.
Oh, I'll tell you guys. I just crossed into the 700 club.
But that's good in more ways than one. Your interest costs have just come down. Your offers to get better credit terms have just improved.
I actually just got my first envelope from American Express.
There you go.
3 days ago.
So, and again, but to your listeners, how did you get there? You got there by getting small credit cards,
yes,
handling them correctly, and then growing it. And all of a sudden, you're getting notices from your credit card company that we upped your available balance by thousands of dollars.
My JCPenney card has an $18,000 limit on it.
Yeah, and you're stupid if you use all of it. Unless you can write the check to pay it off. But if you go out to JCPenney's and you buy Raina a bunch of clothes for Christmas, and guess what? Next December at this time, you still are owing on those clothes, that is the wrong way to do it.
So let's move on into a little bit. Let's talk about, I described you as one of my mentors earlier, and you gave me the surprised face. Because I don't think we've ever necessarily had that mentor conversation where you were imparting advice specifically for imparting advice to me. But I have. You have been a mentor to me, and I've learned from you.
Go on.
And I hope to continue to learn from you.
I do too.
But who's somebody that's influenced you the most?
I have an interesting story. A local realtor in town, Hank Cleland. Hank Cleland was my scoutmaster years ago, and I was a senior patrol leader. And for those of people that aren't in scouting, that's the boy in the troop that is really answers to the scoutmaster, and the rest of the troop works for the senior patrol leader. And we had a father-son camp out at Camp Kaishuta in Chester, and I had the weekend planned from beginning to end. I had it planned with outdoor activities, and it rained. And this was a very valuable lesson. I went to Hank, the scoutmaster, and I said, "What do I do now?" And he said, "I'd ask the senior patrol leader." He threw it right back into my lap. And it was an eye-opening moment. I was the leader of the troop, and it was my responsibility. He knew what to do. He wasn't going to let me ruin the weekend for everybody, but he threw it back and he said, "You work it out." And I got a team together, and we came up with games and things to do inside the scout cabin in Chester, and we had a great weekend. He could have done that, but he threw it back at me. So I always admire Hank Cleland for really, that was the first step of leadership.
Just realizing that the buck stopped with you.
And then, then you have the typical answer, which is very, very true to me, is my father was a huge influence. My brothers have been an influence. Laurie's family, her mom and her dad have been an influence. And Laurie has been a huge influence to make me successful. Is she smiling? She's looking at me.
Like she's looking at you like you're crazy.
No.
So one thing that you kind of touched on about like how Hank just like kind of threw it right back at you. So this is one very sobering realization that Raina and I had shortly after starting our own business, that we had no more excuses. At the end of the day, regardless of whose fault it was, if the client was literally being extraordinarily awful, it was still our fault. If our vendor was late, still our fault. Now, I'm assuming with you that same pressure is magnified because you have a
Somewhat.
much larger business, many more employees. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with the fact that, like, at the end of the day, you are the one that gives, that answers, if that makes sense?
Well, my world and my home life, my entire life would be terrible if it was just me. Part of being success is, once I said at the beginning, I was dealt the hand. I had to play the hand I was dealt. Well, through your career, you get a chance to discard and pick up from the pile. And if it weren't for the valuable leaders that also work at the bank, it would be miserable. The bank is so big now that I have 3 other executive officers, one that handles all the lending, one that handles administration and finance, and one that handles operation. Life's a lot easier when you have somebody to work with. Same is true in just life. I mean, think how easy it is to be a parent when you have a spouse that's a co-parent with you. So it's a team. I'm just the quarterback, maybe not even the quarterback, maybe the coach. And I've got a team of players that make it successful. And we fumble, we have errors, but we pick up and move on.
Are you excited about the future?
Oh, very much.
Tell me why.
Well, for the bank,
In general, you personally, professionally.
Personally, I'm excited for the future because our kids are through college. We sit back and I think we did a pretty good job raising them.
I would agree.
We would hope that grandchildren are in the future, so we're excited for that.
Hint, hint.
Hint, hint, hint. We're also talking about some fun things to do in retirement, and just being together. I'm very excited for that. As for the bank, I'm excited that we're expanding into new markets, growing the bank, just taking what we have done successfully here in the Tri-County area and taking it on the road and try to be successful somewhere else. And then who knows if we're successful in a brand new market that's a high population, that's mobile, who knows where we can go. If we can make us successful there, we can be successful anywhere, and I'm sure we can be.
I have to say that, like, every time I hear about, like when I first found out you guys were opening a branch in Tays Valley, which I don't know if that was a secret when I heard about it. I hope it was.
It still is, Brandon.
Is it?
Still is. No. No, it's not.
We have to delete the whole recording.
No, it's out there, and we're talking about it with great deal of excitement.
But every time I hear about one of your guys' successes, I almost take it personally because it's like wow, that is so awesome that you guys are literally a Meigs County company. You're not an Ohio company like Kroger, even though Kroger's a fantastic company. But you are Meigs County, and people do not associate Meigs County with the word success.
And that's too bad.
And it is. And every time I hear hear about your guys' successes or any other company in the area's successes, I personally feel proud, even though I had nothing to do with it. So first of all, thank you for being an inspiration to the other businesses.
Thanks for noticing.
No, seriously though, if you just follow what should be, you guys shouldn't exist. If you think about it, like a bank from Pomeroy, is it Pomeroy or Meadowport?
Pomeroy.
A bank, yeah, that's right on Court Street, right? Yeah, a bank from Pomeroy should not have 7 branches.
Why not?
Exactly, but just like everybody told us, we shouldn't move here.
It's that self-esteem thing. And once you put the lens on that says I can do this wherever I go, and it's all about treating people correct, or treating people right. We are very interested in improving people's financial lifestyle, not letting them get in over their heads. Sometimes the best answer is no, and we'll say that.
Yeah.
So if you really, really deeply care about the people you serve, the success will follow. And it's not about, my dad used to say, It's not what you take out of the company that makes it successful. It's what you give back. And if you have that giving attitude, and if you really care about making, I'll say it again, about making tomorrow better than today, that's success. And you can do it anywhere.
And it makes us happy when we see like new people coming into the area, like the two of you, and being successful. You know, it just thrills us to death. You know, it's great, and that makes our bank better.
Mm-hmm. It does.
I appreciate you saying that, because I don't feel like a lot of people in your position would necessarily say that, and I appreciate it. And Rain and I have a dream for, that makes it sound way too formal. We would love to see it if all over the country there are little hubs of entrepreneurship, and there are little hubs of successful, like the Chapel Hill, North Carolina area is going through that right now, which they're a much bigger area than we are, but they are like that area, that central North Carolina area is that everybody's talking about that. We have several friends that have moved there actually. I would love it if southeastern Ohio, western West Virginia became a part of that, and I think it could. Mm-hmm. And the reason that I think it, that's my own volume. The reason that I think it could is because there are not a lot of traditional paths to success here, in terms of like compared to Columbus, and I think because of that we could see a lot of uncommonly successful people spring up here. And personally, I want to thank the two of you for kind of fostering that, because you do also, I can tell, believe that is possible, and encourage that because you have with us. So thank you very much. Sorry, I'm gonna do the mic back. If you could talk there for a second, Paul.
All right.
Sorry, I'm still getting this sound guy thing figured out. We're gonna finish up here for a second. I just have one more question, and this is kind of a big one. But for a second, I want you, I want you to pretend pretend like you were talking to your own kid. And I'm assuming that over the years you've had a lot of those awkward dad talks. They're like, "Oh God, Dad, just stop, please, just stop.
Make your bed. pick up after yourself." No.
If you only had one lesson that you could teach your kids, and this is kind of a heavy question, but if you could only have one thing that you could ever teach your two kids, and that was it, that's the only advice that you could give them, I want you to give that to me right now, as though you were talking to them, and take your time.
What's that? Pay your dues. That's kind of it. It's only you can make a difference. You can't depend on your mom and dad. You can't depend on anybody else to make you successful. You've got to try. You've got to put yourself out there. You've got to pick yourself up when you fail, because you will fail. But you've got to just keep stepping outside of that comfort zone. You've got to stay focused. Education never stops. Wisdom never stops. Maturity never stops. And if you want a better life for yourself, the buck stops with you. You are the one that are going to have to do it. And you can do that wherever you live. You can do it in Middleport. You can do it in Pomeroy. You can do it in Columbus. Traffic's a lot worse in Columbus than it is here. But set your mind to it. Follow the goal. Set your plan, and go for it. You want more?
No.
Okay.
Perfect. No, sorry, I'm speechless. That wasn't me. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming in tonight. I know I bribed you with steak.
Well, it was
Delicious.
I would have come just because you asked. You talk about a mentor, but Laurie and I see a lot in you that we admire.
I appreciate that.
And all that you do for the community, and all that you do to make your business better, which in turn makes Pomeroy better, which in turn makes Meigs County better, which in turn goes and goes and goes. So you had a dream, and you followed the dream, and you are more successful probably at your age than I was when I was that age. So keep up the good work, and you're living example that you can stay here and be very, very successful.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Is there anything else you'd like to add? Any last minute one-liners?
No, I've said enough.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Paul Reed, Laurie Reed are with us. Again, guys, thank you very much for listening. In addition to this interview, Paul has agreed to essentially write a letter. If you remember that.
I forgot that part.
You've got a few. You've got a couple months to do it.
Okay.
But one of the big parts of this Pillars project that we're working on is, in addition to these interviews, we're asking all of these pillars of our community to also write a letter to you, and we're going to compile that at the end of the year into an actual book. And every single graduating senior in the area is going to be given that free of charge. And you know. It'll be available elsewhere. It'll never be a for-profit thing. This is not that's not what this is. But be looking out for that. There are going to be more details coming soon. But thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Nothing else.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.